Good morning, third graders. Today we're going to talk about how to create or determine if you have or are reading a division word problem. The standard that we are covering, you will notice, is 3.0a.3, and it says I can solve multiplication or division word problems using story problems with equal groups, arrays, or using repeated addition or subtraction. Now in this case, we're going to focus in on division word problems, and we can use repeated subtraction to help us with solving these types of problems. Remember that multiplication and division are opposite of each other. So when we're solving multiplication word problems, we're using repeated addition to find the whole. But with division, we're using the whole and we're taking parts from that whole to create groups. So let's explore some more. So let's think about how division and multiplication are related to each other. So far, we know that we have a factor, which could be our groups or rows if it's an array. Our second factor tells us how many objects are in each group, and once we take all those objects and put them together, we get a product or a total number of objects. With division, it's just like it sounds. We're dividing or breaking apart the whole. So in this case, our product now is going to become our dividend. We're going to take those 15 total objects and we're going to break them apart. Now in this case, we're going to take the groups or the rows and we're going to divide those 15 objects into the groups. We're going to know that the second factor is going to tell us how many objects will be in each group if we share or divide those 15 objects equally. So that's going to be called our quotient, or the number of objects in each group. Remember that you can switch factors and the product will be the same. The same is true for your divisor and your quotient. If you know the number of objects, you can subtract from those objects to find out how many groups of those total objects you have. So again, remember, we're starting with our total groups or our total objects. We're going to break it apart into groups to find how many are in each group, or we're going to do just the opposite. We know how many are in each group and we're going to find how many groups we have. It just depends on how the problem is written. So let's take a look at a problem. So again, remember, what is division? It's taking a total number of objects and sharing, sorting, or arranging these objects into equal groups or rows. Now, you'll notice over to your right that there are some counters. They are not arranged or sorted into any number of groups or rows. But if we take those 15 total objects and we divide them or share them equally into 3 rows, which would be our groups, we would take each of those counters and put it into a row to find out how many objects there would be in each row. So to do that, we would need to start placing the counters onto or into the rows. And as we continue to place those objects into the rows or onto the rows, we notice that we will end up having equally 5 objects or 5 counters on each row. So we can say that our quotient is 5, and that tells us how many objects are in each row. Now, if we just knew how many objects were in each row already, we could take those 5, put them into the rows, and find out how many rows there are. So again, you either have to know your groups or you need to know the number of objects in each group. You have to know one of those 2 pieces of information. along with your total objects. So you're always going to start with your total objects, and you need to know how many groups there are, or you need to know how many objects are in each group or each row. Remember, you can always check using multiplication. So you'll notice that now that we've taken those objects and put them into rows, now we can see that this is looking more like a multiplication sentence. But we already knew our total objects. So we're going to take the three groups. We see that we have 3 rows. We know that we have 5 objects in each row, and we can count those objects, and we know that there are 15. Again, let's think about what division is. We're going to take the total objects and share and sort them equally into groups. So for example, if you had 16 cherries and we were going to put 4 cherries in each bag, we would not want to know how many baggies we would need. So we're actually looking for the groups. We know how many cherries to put in each baggie, so basically we're using our understanding of repeated subtraction to be able to know how many baggies we'll need. So each baggie is going to have 4 in each. So we're starting with our total cherries. There's 16 cherries. We're going to divide them or share them equally into baggies with 4 cherries in each baggie. So we know how many objects are in each group. So again, remember, we have to know our total. We have to either know our number in each group or the number of groups we have. So in this case, we know the number in each group. So we can decide how many baggies we have. So if we put 4 cherries in a baggie, that's one group. 4 cherries in a baggie, that's a second group. 4 cherries in a baggie, third group. And finally, we put our last 4 cherries in a baggie. And now we know what our quotient is. It's going to be 4 baggies in each group. Or we need 4 baggies with 4 cherries in each baggie. Now again, remember, you can check your division by using your understanding of multiplication. So we can see here we have 4 groups. That's the baggies. We have 4 cherries in each group. That's the number of objects in each group. And our total is 16. Again, we're thinking about taking objects and place them equally into the groups. So Angelique bought a pack of 12 stickers and is going to put the stickers onto 2 pages of her sticker album. Now in this case, our total objects are the stickers, and we know the number of groups. Our pages are the groups. We need to know or find how many stickers will be in each group or how many stickers will be on each page. So we're looking for the objects in each group. So in this case, we're going to take our 12 total stickers, share them and divide them equally onto the 2 pages, which are the groups, and we want to know how many stickers will be on each page. So again, remember, you either have to know your total you have to know your total, then you also need to know your groups, or you need to know how many stickers or how many objects are going to be in each group. So we're going to find either the groups or the number of objects in each group. So if we start placing our stickers one by one onto our pages, we will see that by the time we put them on equally, we have 6 stickers on each page. And again, remember, we can use our understanding of multiplication to check our division. So again, we have 2 pages, that's our groups. We have 6 stickers on each page, and if we add 6 and 6, we get our 12 total stickers. Nydia wants to share her candy equally between her 3 friends and herself. So that means we have 4 people. Those are the groups. If she has 24 pieces of candy, which are the total objects, how many pieces will each of them get? So we know 2 pieces of information. We know our total number of objects and we know the groups. We're looking for how many objects or how many pieces of candy in this case will be in each group. So if we take the 24 pieces of candy, which is our dividend, and we share them equally between the 4 girls or the 4 people, we want to know how many pieces of candy will each of them get, which would be our quotient. So again, we're starting with the total. We're breaking up the total into groups, and we want to know how many objects will be in each group. So now that we know our equation and we've set that up, we can start breaking up those candies into groups. So each girl has 2 right now. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. So what we basically did here is use repeated subtraction to help us get to the 24 pieces of candy. Once we've broken it apart equally, now we can see that each girl has 6 pieces of candy. Again, remember, it's always a good thing to know your multiplication facts fluently so that this is much easier for you when you go to model. Again, remember, you're checking your multiplication or your division using multiplication. So our 4 girls, which are the groups, have 6 candies each. And if I add 6 plus 6, which is 12, plus 6, which is 18, plus 6, I get my 24 total pieces of candy that I broke apart. We can also use this using arrays or thinking about area. Ms. Jaramillo made a rectangle array with an area of 18 square units. So we know our total square units. And put 6 square units in each row. So basically, we're taking the total and we're pulling out 6 squares for each row. So basically, we're using repeated subtraction because we know the number of squares for each row. So we're going to look for the groups or how many rows we would have. So our dividend is 18 total squares. We're going to break them apart into rows, but we know how many are in each row. So we start with taking out 6 squares, and we want to know how many rows we're going to get. So we start off with 18, take out 6 squares, and now we're left with 12 squares. Now we're going to take 6 more squares and take those out of the 12, and we're going to put that into a row. Now we're left with 6 squares, and now we're going to take those remaining 6 squares, we're going to put them into a row, and now we're left with 0 squares. So now we can see that every time we put 6 squares into a row, we were creating a group. So we can see that once we put all 18 squares into the rows, now we have 3 rows. And again, remember, we can check our division using multiplication. So we see that we have 3 rows. We see that we have 6 squares in each row. And if we add 6 plus 6, which is 12, plus 6 is going to give us 18. Now, what if we decided to change that array and change our information? What if we know that we have 18 square units, but now we're going to put them into 3 rows? Now what if we know our groups? Then we'd be looking for the number of squares in each row or group. So we're going to divide them by the groups this time. our divisor is going to be the rows. So we want to know how many squares are in each row. So if we start placing squares into the rows, we could start with a square, 1, 2, 3. There's our 3 rows. Now we're just going to start filling those rows in until we finish using up our total of 18 squares. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and finally we've used our 18 square units. We can see now that we have taken our 3 rows, we have 6 squares in each row. So now it's your turn. We are going to solve and create division word problems. Remember, first thing you need to know in a division word problem is we need to know the total objects. And we also either need to know how many groups we have, or we need to know how many objects are in each group to find how many groups we have. So now you're going to take a look in your Envision hardback book on page 180, and as we do this in class, I'm going to assign you some specific problems from numbers 1 through 11. Please do not work ahead. We will be working together on this assignment. So, see you later today, and can't wait to see you guys for math.